These are two mysteries that still remain unsolved. Part 2. Number 2. A skull in plain sight. This might be one of the most obvious cases you'll ever hear, but even so, it's worth revisiting. Linda Sherman, 27 years old, and Don, 28, were one of those unhappy couples, the jealous, controlling kind, with a 9-year-old daughter caught in the middle. They got married because of the pregnancy. They felt obligated, and feeling obligated in a situation like that is dangerous. Time only helped reveal the mistake. Dawn was always suspicious, constantly jealous of her friends and co-workers. She, in turn, threatened him with divorce and taking their daughter away. And she actually did leave with the girl a few times, but out of emotional dependence, or simply because they had been together so long. She always ended up coming back. Once that cycle begins, the relationship is already dead. On April 22nd, 1985, Linda came home late from work, around 2 a.m., and found her husband furious. He had a song on repeat and was consumed with jealousy. Why had she stayed at work so late? Was she having an affair? From here on, all we know is what Don himself claimed. He said they argued for 2 hours. Sometime after 4 a.m., he went to bed. Linda, according to him, stayed on the couch. Later that morning, Don got up to take their daughter to school. Something Linda usually did. He said she was still asleep, face down on the sofa. Their daughter said the same. Her mom didn't say goodbye, didn't move, didn't even stir. Don went to work and returned around 6 p.m. He claimed he was surprised to see Linda still at home. She said she had overslept and needed to hurry because she was already late for work, but she never showed up to her job. When the police informed Don, his first thought was that she had run off with another man, abandoning both him and their daughter. Her car was found parked at the airport, but no tickets were purchased under her name, Linda Sherman. Coincidentally, Don said he had seen her days later in a car with another man. According to his version, it really looked like she had left with a co-worker. Naturally, the police investigated everyone around her, but found nothing. 4 years passed. Linda still hadn't been found. So Don moved on with his life, met another woman, and wanted to marry her. But legally, Linda was still missing and couldn't be declared dead until 7 years had passed. 1 year later, 5 years since Linda's disappearance, someone alerted the police that a human skull had been left on the street right in front of a restaurant. They weren't sure if it was a prank, but it looked disturbingly real. And it was. A human female skull. It was too weathered to identify. Another year passed. Now 6 years since Linda vanished. An anonymous note was sent to that same restaurant. The message was short and direct. Bridgeton police have the skull of Linda Sherman. Why that restaurant? Don said it was his favorite. He believed the killer had chosen that exact place to mess with him. That was the plan. Intimidate him, spook him enough to stop him from marrying again, but without actually hurting him. That was the big grand idea. With everything pointing in the same direction, it's almost unbelievable that someone got away with it. Yes, they suspected Don, but they never found evidence, never arrested him. And how is it possible that someone dumb enough to dig up a skull and leave a note didn't realize that only 1 more year needed to pass for Linda to be declared legally dead? How could someone that careless commit a murder and leave no trace? The note itself was odd, blunt, direct. Not the typical signature of someone who wants to be theatrical. When killers write notes, they tend to ramble. They like manifestos. This one wasn't like that. In fact, the note didn't intimidate Don at all. If anything, it helped him. Think about it. Someone deranged enough to dig up a skull 6 years later and leave it outside a restaurant, specifically his favorite, would have to know the victim well. They'd have to know Don. They'd have to know where he liked to eat, and they'd have to hate him. But not enough to kill him, just enough to murder the woman he no longer loved. Whoever did this would have known the marriage was broken. That kind of planning takes patience, and you want me to believe someone like that just stops? If I were that person, I'd go for the daughter next, or the new woman, or finally, Don himself. But of course, that man never existed. That night, in the early hours of April 22nd, during the argument, Don killed her. The setting made it easy to argue it wasn't premeditated, but that wouldn't matter. That morning, when their daughter left for school, she didn't see her mom sleeping. She saw her mom dead, face down on the couch. Later that day, Dawn buried the body in an unknown location. It's still never been found, and drove her car to the airport to support the runaway lover's story. But when he met another woman and wanted to get married again, he realized Linda still needed to be declared dead. So, with cold calculation, he dug up the skull and placed it outside his favorite restaurant. The note? That was just the final touch. And it worked. He got away with it. Of course, there's always the chance I'm wrong, but as the saying goes, if you hear hoofbeats, think horses, not zebras. The simplest explanation is usually the right one. An abusive husband, a wife who had threatened to leave and take their daughter, a sudden disappearance, in which, unlike previous times, she didn't take the girl with her. Everything that happened after that, the skull, the note, it all benefited Dawn. As for the daughter, she couldn't have known back then, but as she grew up, she'd realized she was raised by a murderer, or worse, by a murderer and a fool. Because if Dawn's new partner couldn't see what kind of man he was and didn't realize what he had done to his previous wife, then I don't know what else to call her. Let this serve as a warning. When you want to leave a relationship that's clearly dangerous, you need to be smart about it. The most dangerous moment is always when you tell your partner you're leaving. You have to plan it, and it has to be legal. Otherwise, it's easy to fall into the trap of taking your kids without permission and confusing the system. The authorities won't know if you're in danger. What they will know is that you've committed parental abduction. I won't go into that topic now. Bringing it up always leaves a bad taste. Just take this advice. Don't make threats. Think about who you're talking to. To someone toxic, you might be the only thing they have. Not romantically, but in a twisted, possessive way. If you say you're leaving, they hear, "I'm taking everything from you." And there are people out there who don't let go without a fight. A locked room mystery. She never complained about anyone. She never said anything bad. All she wanted was to go home. That's what her father said just days after his daughter apparently took her own life inside her apartment. And if that were true, this would be one of the strangest cases you'll ever hear. At first glance, it looked impossible. But then again, it also looked impossible that someone else could have killed her. That's why, even though she was found with 20 stab wounds, some shallow, some to the back of her neck, the police ultimately ruled it a suicide, because both the front door and the window were locked from the inside. Her name was Ellen Greenberg. She was a school teacher, about to get married. In fact, she had mailed out her wedding invitations just 4 days earlier. She wasn't someone people described as anxious, but as the wedding approached, her mood changed. Her family, her friends, her co-workers, all of them noticed a shift. And yes, it's normal to feel nervous before a wedding, but not like this. Not to this extent, and it wasn't all because of the wedding. Her psychiatrist said her job as a teacher was overwhelming her. He initially prescribed Zoloft and Xanax, but saw no progress. Later, he switched to Klonopin, and things seemed to improve. In his notes, he wrote, "The patient is beginning to think about other things." Another note stated, "Not suicidal," and finally, "Much better." Ellen herself wrote to her mom saying Klonopin had helped her. Her mom replied, "That makes me so happy, sweetheart." And Ellen said, "Me too." But that progress didn't last. The very next day, things seemed to fall apart again. Just one day before her death, Ellen's mom encouraged her to stay in therapy. She responded, "Okay, I'll keep trying. I'm just a little scared of everything right now." On the day it happened, Ellen was at home with her fiancé, Samuel Goldberg. Around 4:30 in the afternoon, he left to go to the gym. Not for long, just 30 minutes. When he came back, he couldn't get in. The door was locked from the inside, not just the deadbolt, but the security latch too. He knocked, but she didn't answer. He tried calling. Nothing. So he started texting her, each message more aggressive than the last. He didn't know if she was ignoring him, if she had fallen asleep, or if she was trying to punish him for something he couldn't remember. His messages included, "Open the door. What are you doing? I'm getting pissed. "Hello," and "You better have a good excuse." He sent those texts over the course of 22 minutes. Then, finally, he ran downstairs and asked the building's security guard, Philip Hampton, to help him break in. The guard knew Samuel, but refused to help. Most likely, he figured it was a couple's argument and didn't want to get involved. He probably suggested calling a locksmith. He probably assumed Ellen was inside and had locked the door on purpose. Still, once he saw Samuel really trying to get in, he followed him upstairs. Samuel forced the door open, and there was Ellen, lying on the kitchen floor, bleeding with a knife in her chest. They called 911. For every detail that screams, "It was the fiancé," there's another that says, "It couldn't have been." Let's break it down. 20 stab wounds, all in the kitchen. Most were to the neck and chest, with 1 or 2 to the head. She wasn't sexually assaulted. Nothing was missing from the apartment. It wasn't a robbery. There was no suicide note either. But here's where things get even stranger. Ellen had been cutting an orange right before it happened. So either she was attacked while holding the knife, or she dropped it and used it on herself. The door was locked from the inside, and so was the window. The building had security cameras, and no one else was seen entering or leaving except Samuel. Even if you could explain how someone else locked the door from the outside. Ellen had no defensive wounds. She never tried to block the attacks with her hands or arms. She never once complained about Samuel, only about work and the stress of the wedding. She spoke with her mother that very day and sounded calm. Not the kind of calm you'd expect from someone planning to end their life in just a few minutes. And then there's the browsing history. This part can be a clue or a trap. A week before she died, Ellen had been Googling things. Some of them were normal, though not recommended, like looking up side effects of her medications. Others were more concerning. On December 18th, 2010, she visited the Wikipedia page for methods of suicide, specifically looking into suffocation. On January 3rd, she compared the side effects of Prozac and Zoloft. On January 6th and 9th, she visited a forum about how Zoloft can cause weight gain and found a post about a girl who electrocuted herself in the bathtub while trying to send a tweet. That incident had happened in 2009. The girl tried to plug in her laptop while in the tub and was found with a burn on her palm. Ellen looked at the photo of the girl and kept browsing. On January 10th, the day before she died, she searched for an article opposing euthanasia, then quick suicide methods, and finally, painless suicide. After that, she stopped. That same day, she told her mom she was feeling better. No more dark searches. And then 16 days later, she was dead on the kitchen floor. So the question is, if she wanted a painless way to die, why choose something as brutal as stabbing? And if Samuel was the one who made those searches behind her back, that would mean he was a mastermind, preparing a digital trail that would frame her as suicidal. But even if that were true, why would someone so calculated kill her in such a suspicious way? 20 stab wounds while she's cutting fruit? That doesn't make sense. And if he hated her that much, she would have noticed. Rage like that doesn't appear overnight, not in a couple that's supposedly about to get married. Of course, there's the final possibility, that she really did do it herself. It sounds unbelievable, but there are rare cases where people use horrifying methods. Chainsaws, table saws, even hammers. Yes, even stabbing themselves. These are real cases, though extremely rare. Officially, Ellen's death was ruled as suicide. But understandably, many believe the fiancé found a way to do it without leaving a mark, without getting caught. Maybe he did the searches. Maybe he staged the locked door. Maybe he found a way to leave no defensive wounds. Maybe, or maybe, she really did take her own life in the most shocking way imaginable.